All right. So, yesterday, what we worked on was adding the subfield type. So, with the subfield type, that allows users to kind of create a field that can have subfields under it. So let's say this was a subfield, and then we wanted to add, other fields under it. So we got that going, got it saving in the database. I got to refresh. So subfield, add a text area. Just rename that. Save that. That all gets saved in the database. So now when we refresh, it shows up here. So as far as getting the field type set up, that's pretty much all ready. I set up all the fields besides the pageable ones. So these pageable ones are going to be fields that are going to kind of come by default when you set up a collection that's being used for a pageable. But we're not going to set that up quite yet. I think what I'm thinking is getting the collection builder set up. This way we have our fields, our collections and the fields for those collections saved in the database. And then working on setting up like the CRUD for our collections. And so this is going to be how our users manage the information for their collections. So, you're going to have your basic or your standard index page that has a table of all the items. You can create a new item, edit an item, delete an item, the standard CRUD stuff. And, it's going to be all dynamic because all of the fields are going to be based off of what the user has added in their collection builder. And so I think I'm pretty much ready to start off with that. The only thing I was going to do here was I needed to add a way to delete collections. As you see here, I've been testing out a bunch, and so I have a bunch of junk here. So I just want to delete a bunch of these, and so I think I'm going to just go ahead and add the delete functionality for the collections. And at that point, I think we should have everything we need for collections in order to start building our CRUD interface. So to create a delete feature, it should be pretty straightforward. We're using Inertia.js, which if you're not familiar, it's just kind of like a way to use the backend, like a backend like Laravel, but then have your front end kind of be like a single page application. But it's not entirely single page application because it actually does make requests back to the server to get to make requests. But when it comes back, it doesn't have to do a full page reload. Inertia.js is able to just figure out kind of not figure out. It just replaces the DOM with the new response. Anyhow, I think what I'm going to do is add, probably for now, I'm going to add a delete button here on the right side of each line item here. And then once they click it, they'll have a little confirmation message. Hey, are you sure you want to delete? And then if they confirm it, it'll make a request to delete it. It's going to delete it in the back end and then redirect back to this page. So pretty straightforward for this. I'm just going to make sure I don't have any working changes. That should be good there. And so for our front end here, we have pages, collections, index. And so right now we have a table row, a table cell with the collection name that links to the edit page of the collection. So I think what we can do here is add a new table cell. And in this table sale, you know what, I think I might need to reference the Inertia.js documentation, because I'm not sure if this is going to be like a form submission or if this can just be a simple link. So let me see here, forms maybe. So they do, Inertia.js does support delete requests. I'm going to search delete here, see if anything comes up. Delete. Manual visits, maybe? It's been a while since I used Inertia.js, so don't know off the top of my head. Looks like this is a form helper. So I mean, I guess like I'm trying to avoid building out a form if I don't have to. So I'm going to see if I can have a button that on click makes that inertia request. Let's see what happens. Delete. Just make sure button is imported. Oops. All right, and then I have to get my npm run hot work in there. All right, so we have a delete button. And of course, if we have a table cell in the table body, we have to also add it to the header. We're not going to have any title there. We're just going to have an empty cell. There we go. That cleans that up. So on click, we're going to do delete collection. Of course, actually this has to be a callback. Delete collection, and then we're going to pass in the collection object. And so here we're going to add a new function for delete collection. And of course, before we actually do the delete, we want to confirm with the user. So if not confirm, are you sure you want to delete the, and I think I'll just put in the collection name just so the user kind of knows which collection they're deleting. So collection.name collection. So if the collection name is pages, are you sure you want to delete the pages collection? And if they don't confirm that, we're just going to return. Let's just test that out real quick. Are you sure you want to delete the collection name collection? Cancel, shouldn't do anything. And then, of course, console.log, delete the collection. Just want to make sure that it's working when they confirm. It's okay. All right, it's being hit. So this is where we would make that inertia request. And I think we might be able to actually use this inertia.visit. Or maybe we could even just use inertia.delete. Let's see what happens there. So inertia.delete. And then we need to give it a we need to give it a URL. And we have not created that yet. So I'm going to go into our backend and create that. So we can do route delete collection/collection. And that will be the collections controller class, and the method will be destroy. Pretty sure that's the common convention for Laravel routes when you do delete methods. Just going to verify that real quick. Yeah, so delete is destroy. Cool. And I guess the route name is actually photos.or collection.destroy. That's fine. All right, so in our app, now we can use our little route helper, which uses Ziggy. And we will say the route needs to be collections.destroy, and then we need to pass in the collection ID. And I don't actually remember if that needs to be inside an array, so let's try that. And if it doesn't work, we'll know why. And for now, what we'll do is we'll create a method for that destroy method here in the controller, public function destroy. It's going to take in a collection, and the user has already confirmed, so what we're going to do is we can just go ahead and delete it. So collection delete, and then we're going to return redirect route collections.index. So after the user deletes it, it should return back to the index page. All right, so do you want to delete the collection? Press OK. So collections.destroy is not in the routes list, and I think that may be because we're prefixing it with the admin keyword. So let's just double check that. Our route list. Oh, I need to make it collections, not collection. So collections.destroy. All right, and I think at this point it should work. So delete that, press OK. And it did make a request. I'm not sure if it actually deleted it. Let's see here. Okay, it did. We see that disappeared. So now let's test this one, collection name 2. All right, and it's gone. And if I refresh, it's not here anymore. Sweet. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete a bunch of these. These were all tests. All right, now I'll create a new one, and I think what I'll do is, well, before I get there, I think we're done with this feature, being able to delete collections. So let's go ahead and just commit that real quick. Do a quick check of what we changed. That should be good. So add a way to delete collections. Push that out. All right. So just gonna check something real quick. All right. So now that we have collections, The collections are being stored in the database, and for this I'm currently using MongoDB. Flex collections. Of course, we don't have anything in here, but we're going to create a new one, and we're just going to call it a test collection. I'm going to add some generic fields. General, if I can spell. Add a text field, and then add maybe a text area field for now. All right, so we now have a collection, and so the idea is that any collections that we create, what's going to happen is we're going to list out all the collections here in that left sidebar nav. And so like this test collection that we created, as soon as we create it, that's going to be available here. And so I think it's going to be like dynamically generated for this CMS. And so all your collections are going to kind of have that dynamic nature where they're all database driven. So we might be able to start there to add that like left nav bar, but we don't necessarily need to. Like we can maybe even just work on building the CRUD, and then we can add the nav later, which I think is what I'm going to do, because I tend to kind of try to focus on the kind of most important part of the feature first, get that built out, and then focus on all the other kind of little details around that feature. And so the idea here is that, so we have this admin URL path. And so like this test collection will be admin slash I don't know, maybe we'll make it CRUD slash test collection. And test collections is kind of weird because it's not really like a name that we would give a collection. And so maybe create something that's a little more realistic. So realistically, we're going to have collections for things like pages and blogs and team members and team member departments. And so the collection name is going to be usually plural. So let's say we have pages, and so a page might have a title, and then it would definitely have content. So that's all I'm going to do for now. So in this example, when we have the pages collection, I think what we'll do is do slash CRUD slash pages, and that's how you get to the index page for the pages collection. I'm just going to open up a little scratch pad. So slash admin CRUD pages, I think that's what we're going to do. Now this pages, that's going to be like the URL parameter that we're going to use. So it's going to be CRUD collection. I mean, we could technically use the ID of the collection, but ideally we would use something that's a little more user-friendly so that, you know, the URL just kind of has that name. And so I think what we're going to have to do is probably going to have to add like maybe like a slug field to our collections. So we have a name field, but to add like another field that we can use to find that collection from the URL. So when somebody goes to admin CRUD pages, it's going to know to look at that collection by this slug. And so I think what we're going to do is when we are saving a new collection, saving and updating, we're going to have a little model event that gets triggered that will generate a new slug and include it in the data of that collection, so that when it gets saved to the database, that slug will be part of the data. And then because this will be a model event that happens when the model is saved, anytime it's updated, it'll stay in sync. And so what we can do here is, so Laravel model events. I was gonna have to look this up because it's kind of rare that I use it, but observers. Events. This is what we're looking for. So that's one way to do it, but there's another way to do it. Let's see here. No, that's global events. We don't want that. This is what we're looking for. So yeah, protect the static function booted, and then we add an event listener. Booted. Then we do static, and I think what we're gonna do is saved. Yeah, so these are all the events that are available for the model. So retrieved, creating, created, updating, updated, saving, saved. So I think what we want is saving, because that's going to occur both when the model is created, but also when the model is updated. Yep. So the saved events will dispatch when the model is created or updated. And so we want to do it on the saving one because we want to do it before it's saved, because we want to put that data into the model right before that save event. So static saving, and then what we do is we provide a callback here, a closure. We take the model as the parameter here, and we're going to say model slug will be equal to, and I think what we're going to do is just do a basic string slug from the name. And then we can actually maybe just use collection as the variable name here, just to make it more clear. Cool, so it's going to set the slug at the time that it's saving, and then it's going to continue doing the saving process, and so it's going to save that slug in the model. So I'm going to go ahead and test that out. What we're going to do is we're going to delete what we currently have here. Oops, got to run our scripts here. Go ahead and delete, delete, and so let's create a new one for pages. Actually, we don't even need a field. Just testing this out for now. All right, there we have it. So now this new collection got saved, both with the name and with the slug. Perfect. So, let's test it out with maybe another one. So let's say we had team members. Refresh. There we go. So team members, because it's 2 words, it's going to have a dash here. Perfect. And so I'm just going to go ahead and commit that. Commit. save slug for collection. Perfect. So now we're gonna have a new route here. So like I was saying, I'm gonna probably prefix it with CRUD for now. I might have a better name in the future. Yeah, we'll just do CRUD for now. Doesn't really matter. Collection. And I think what you can do when you have a parameter like this, you can actually tell Laravel which model attribute to use when looking it up. And so Laravel route model binding. So this way, because by default, Laravel is going to try to look up the it's going to try to look up the model by the ID, but we're not passing the ID. We're passing the slug, and so we got to tell it to use the slug. And if I'm not mistaken, okay, yeah, here's an example. Yeah, customizing the key. So what we do is just do a colon, and then we provide the attribute name. So in this case, slug. And so now we can, provide the controller. We don't have a controller yet, so I'm going to go ahead and generate one. And so R make controller. Let's call it CRUD controller. Perfect. I'm just going to add a public function index. It's going to take a collection. And for now, we're just going to die dump that collection. Just want to make sure this route works. So route get collection slug uses the CRUD controller class and the index method. We're going to name this CRUD.index. Perfect. And then I'm just going to go ahead and import this class here just to simplify that fully qualified name. All right. So let's actually not refresh. We have to go to admin, CRUD, pages. Perfect. Let's test out that team members one as well. So if we look at the attributes, yep, that's pulling up the correct collection there. So back to pages. And so I think the way we want this to look is like a simple table. I have a very, very basic mock-up of this. That's my collection builder. So going to be super simple. It's going to have a list of all the items for that collection. You know, search, filter, columns, pagination. I mean, we'll probably do the index after we've created the create and edit pages, just because we'll have something to work with at that point. So yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll start with building the CRUD create page, getting all the sections and the fields on that on the create page, and then being able to save those as items in the database. So the way I'm going to kind of call this is we have our collections and then we have the collection items. So I think as a starting point, what I'll probably do is set up a new page for the CRUD create page. And for now, it's just only going to support one field type, which is going to be the basic text field. I'm going to get that displaying, get that showing, and then set up the saving process. So we're going to set up the form real quick, and then make sure that the item gets saved to the database. And then we'll kind of, go from there. So for our CRUD controller, what we're going to do, so we're using Inertia. And so what we're going to do is Inertia, return of Inertia response. So this is Inertia render. The component is going to be CRUD/index, And then what we do is we pass the parameters that we want to pass to our component. And so in this case, we got to make sure that we pass the collection. And the collection, so the collection, the way it works is the collection has, let's see here. Well, I guess I can show this in the collection builder. So collections, what they have is they have sections. So the way it's going to work is you have like a left column of fields. This is kind of like your main column. And then you have your right column, which is a smaller column that you can put fields in. And so within each column, you can add sections. So you can add multiple sections, section 1, section 2, you can drag and drop them. And then within each section, you can add fields. Each section can have as many fields as it wants. You cannot add a field outside of a section. They always have to be inside a section. And so what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to build a form that's similar to this little mock-up here. So this white rounded box here, that's our section. This is like the section name. And then these are the fields. Oops. These are the fields on the section. And so when we render this, we have to make sure that we load the sections, and then the sections, not fields, I think. So I'm still not sure exactly how I'm going to render this quite yet, because the way that I have it saving is, so we have our collections, and then we have our collection sections. And so this is just a collection section belongs to a collection, and then a collection has many sections, right? So that's pretty straightforward. When it comes to the fields, so you have a collection that has a section, and a section has a field, but I also have a way to pull all the fields from a collection directly. So I can actually show that relationship here in our collection class. So we have collection sections, collection fields. And so, we have a collection ID for a collection section. And so I'm still not sure yet if we're gonna, how exactly we're gonna iterate through those in our front end, but I guess we'll figure that out once we get there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new directory here under pages for our CRUD. And under that, we're gonna create a new file, index.js. So what we're going to do is export default function index. It's going to take in some props. And so for now, we're just going to return just a simple div. And we're going to render out the props.collection.name. Simple enough. Got the scripts running. Make sure I'm returning the correct thing. Yep, crud.index. And so now, I'm just going to go ahead and open up a new tab here, close these out. So we have flex backend /admin/crud/pages. Perfect. So that pulled up our pages collection, and then let's test it for team members. Perfect. And so our new page here should be using our layout. And so if you see here in our collections pages, it's using the layout here that we created, and that's just stored here in this file. So what we need to do is wrap our page with our layout. So we'll do layout. And then of course we need to import this, and I think import layout from, this will be /layout. Yep. All right, let's refresh. Perfect. So now we have our sidebar here, and this is going to be our main content. And so if we look at the mockup here, we're going to have a left column, we're going to have a right column. This is going to be about, I don't know, 75%, I'm thinking. That's going to be like 25%. So let's set that up first. And I'm using MUI for the front end. This is a front end framework. And I think we have some grids here. Or some grid utilities. Yes. Grid. So basic grid, column widths are integer values between 1 and 12. So I'm thinking what, maybe like an 8 and a 4. Actually, that's exactly what I'm looking for, 8 and a 4. So what we do is we create a grid container, add some spacing, and then we add grid items, and then we specify the size of it. So let's go ahead and try that out. So grid. And I don't know why it's not pulling in the MUI. Import grid from, I forget what the package is, MUI/material. All right, grid, and then this has to be a container. And we will include some spacing. So we'll just go with 2 for now, see how that looks. And then we have the grid item. Grid item. And so for now, we're just going to just make it the size from the XS breakpoint. So do 8. And then left column, just put that there for now. And then we're going to have grid item XS is equal to 4. And then we're going to say right column. You know what? I'm actually going to move this up to the top and make it a title. So we'll have the collection name as the title of the page for now. Sweet. So we have team members, we have a left column, we have a right column. Perfect. So now what we would want to do is we want to iterate through all the sections for the left column and display them. And I think what I'll do actually, because I think it'll probably make it easier, instead of having the sections loaded under the collections, under the collections model, I guess, or object. So we can kind of see that here. If we console log collection and we do props.collection, we'll be able to see that the collection has the sections here, right? So it has the sections, and then we have this field column. That's how we know which column it belongs to, or which column it should show under. And then fields. Right now, fields is empty. And I'm just going to make sure I have something there. Okay, so we have a section. We don't have any fields. So let's add a title and some content. And we're going to do one on the right side as well. So I don't know, I'm just going to say right side section, right section field 1, right section field 2. Save that. All right, that's all well and good. So I think if we refresh here, we have sections, we have fields. And the fields aren't showing there because we're not actually loading them yet. Like, because you got to remember that if you were to, do something like collection section first fields, if you were doing that in PHP or in Laravel, it would automatically load that for you with Eloquent. But because we're kind of passing this into into the front end, and then in the front end we're picking up that collections and kind of iterating through it, we have to make sure that we load it ahead of time. And I do see here that we are loading sections.fields. Oh, that's under team members. I'm looking under the wrong collection here. So now let's check this real quick. Sections, we have the first section on the left, field 1, field 2, and then second section here on the right, field 1, field 2. Perfect. So, all right. So in our left section, what we're going to do is we're going to do collection dot sections, and what we want to do is we want to filter them. We want to only grab the sections where the section dot column is equal to left, and then once we filter those out, we're going to map over them, and we're going to return some content. So for now, we're just going to do section dot name. Save that to have that formatted. And we have an issue. So we have collections is not defined, and that's because we need props.collection. All right, so that's our section name right there. So that's going to be our section. And I think what I'll do is I'll add like a border around it so that we can kind of make sure that we see it. We'll just make a green one for the section, and then we'll add a little bit of padding, 15 pixels of padding. Of course, there's nothing inside of there yet, but what we'll do now is we'll also map over all the fields. So section.fields.map, and then for each field, we're also going to output a div, and we'll just say field.name for now as well. So there we have it. So we have fields that match our collection builder, and it's kind of yelling at me here because I haven't provided it a key. So for the section, we'll do section.id, and then for the field, we'll do key field.id. All right, we're good now. And let me just remove this console.log. Perfect. So we have our title, content, and this is what matches our collection builder here. I'm just gonna check something real quick. All right. And so for now, I think what I'll do is, so we have our field name, and so I'm kind of do the same thing where I'm going to add like some padding and some border, just so we kind of know where a field starts and where it ends. So border 1 pixel solid blue maybe, and then padding, let's do 5 pixels. All right, perfect. And so we have the field name, and I think for now I'll just make that into a div so that it's a block level element. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use the material text field. All right, it's a little big, but that's our text field for our field. And I think what we'll do here for now, we'll just do field.type equals text. And if it does equal text, we're gonna display a text field because we don't want a text field to show for our text area field here. All right. Cool. So this is the argumentation for the text field. Label is what I'm looking for. So we need a name. We need to name our text field. .name. And I think I like the standard variant. Yeah. And so, cool, so we have that. And I think what we can do is we can maybe do the same thing for the text area field. For now, there's the only two fields that we will support. So field type is equal to text area. We're gonna do a text area field. And I think it's gonna be the same component, but it's a multi-line component here. And so I think what we need to do is pass the multi-line prop to our text field. Multi-line. So now we can add multiple lines here. Perfect. And I wonder if we can just change the size of it just so we know that it's a text area field. And I think we can use the rows parameter here. So rows 4. Just so we can distinguish between the two. So we know, hey, this is a text field, this is a text area field. And one more small thing, I'm going to make sure that it's full width. We're going to be going through and updating styles in the future, but just small little things for now that can make it easier to work with. All right, perfect. So one more thing I forgot is, so we have our field name here, but each section itself has a name as well. So I think maybe we'll use like an H4 maybe for the section.name. It's a lot of margin, but let's see here. It'll work for now. Not sure why it has so much margin. We'll leave it for now. We'll maybe fix some of the styles later. So that's that. And I think actually for our sections, we probably want to use maybe like a card component, because you see here, the idea is that we're going to have like this gray or off-white background, and then the actual section, in order to distinguish that this is a section, is going to be white. It's going to have a white background. And so I think what I want to do is actually wrap each section into a card, and then we'll put the fields inside that card. So if I can find the card, there it is. So I haven't used cards yet with material, so figuring it out has them going. And so they also have this paper component, and you know what? I'm actually not even sure when I would use one over the other. Looks like paper is maybe something that's, let's see here. In material design, the physical properties of paper are translated to the screen. The background of an application resembles the flat, opaque texture of a sheet of paper, and an application's behavior mimics paper's ability to be resized, reshuffled, and bound together in multiple sheets. No idea how that applies to a real-world scenario. I think what I'm looking for here is a card. So cards are services that display content and actions on a single topic. That sounds about right. So let's see here, look at this example, basic card. So it looks like we wrap everything with a card, and we have the card content, and then we can have like card actions and things like that. So what I'm seeing here too is there's a box element. Okay, so it looks like the box is just a wrapper component, so you can like add CSS to it. All right, well, let's try it out. So here, instead of using a div, we're going to use a card. See what the default gets us. And then we also got to make sure that we wrap the content inside a card content component. All right. Cool, so that gives us our padding. And then for the title, let's try this. All right, gotta make sure that's imported. All right. So these are wrapped in curly braces, so React is trying to interpret that. So we're gonna swap that out for section.name. There we go. All right, so that is a little big. So H5 is that big. Let's see. Check out the typography documentation here. Okay, that's better. And then, of course, we got to make sure we provide our key. To get rid of this error message from React. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove the border from our field. And all I'm going to do is maybe add some margin. Maybe 15 pixels for now. All right, cool. So that kind of gives us a good starting point. So this is our left column. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try adding another section, a new section to our left column. Just add some generic fields. Test field 2. Save that. Yeah, so what's cool is the dynamic nature of this is as soon as you update your collection builder, your CRUD form automatically updates to match it. So of course you can go in there, you can move fields around, add sections, remove sections, save, come back, and then it's gonna reflect whatever your collection builder has. And then the thing I want to do here is add a little bit of margin between these because, let's put that back real quick. They seem to be running into each other. Actually, let me see if the card component has anything for margin. Nope. Margin bottom, just do like 15 pixels for now. Nah, let's do a little more, maybe like 25. All right, that's fine. And of course, it does look a little weird because we have a white background, but imagine we had a background that was like that. It would look a lot better. I mean, I wonder if I can just add that real quick. So this is going to be inside our layout. So this is our main component here, and let's try it. Background color. All right, yeah, that works. It's just now this kind of looks a little weird, which is kind of fine, I guess. I think what I need to do here is maybe use a card instead of just a div. So I know we have our collection builder. This is our main form here. Yeah, so our create and our edit, it just returns a collection builder. Maps over the columns, returns a collection column. Okay, so collection column has a grid. Okay, yeah, it has a div. And I don't think we want a background. Yeah, we don't really want a background and a border on the column itself. Yeah, it looks much cleaner. And then what we want to do is update our collection sections to use a card. Remove the padding, remove the border. And then we have to make sure that we wrap our content inside a card content component. All right, perfect. It's looking good. It looks much cleaner than what I had before. You know, we're still going to make changes in the future, but for now, this is going to be an okay starting point. Cool. So we have our left column here showing correctly, and we want to make sure that we do the same thing for our right column. Just close a bunch of these. And I just realized I am actually editing the wrong file. So we're going to actually rename this to create. Yeah, just rename it to create. All right, now we have a route for create. So index is going to be at just like the root. And then for the create, we'll just do /create. Perfect. And then of course we got to make sure to load the create component. All right. So we got our left column set up here, and we want to do the same thing for the right column. And I think what we want to do is we want to probably extract this into a separate component. This way we don't have to duplicate the same logic here. And so what we can probably do is, what we're doing is we're filtering through the sections and grabbing the ones that are for that column. And mapping over those. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things actually. So I'm actually going to make the grid columns like dynamic, so that we're going to have like a columns array that we're going to map over. And you can see this here. I'm doing the same thing for our collections. So columns.map, and then for each column, you know, we have a column key, and then we have like probably have somewhere the column size. Yes, that'll be here. So item column size. And so what we have here is columns, and this is just a simple variable. And I think what I can probably do is maybe even just extract this into like its own class, so that both files use the same thing. So we'll just do columns.js, export default, copy this, and then import it here. Because in the future, I mean, so right now we're kind of making the column static. So you only have, you know, two options. You have the left column, the right column, but I imagine in the future, we might make that configurable where you can actually decide how many columns you want. You can decide how big those columns should be. But for now, we're just kind of keeping it simple. And I just want to refresh this, make sure this is working still. It looks like it is. Perfect. No errors. And then we're going to use the same columns in our CRUD form. So import columns from /columns. All right, so that's our container, and inside the container, this is where we're going to have our columns. So columns.map, we're going to take the column, and we're going to return something. And what we're going to return is this grid. And so for that, instead of being hard-coded, we're going to provide a column size, I believe. Is that what we're using? Yeah, column size. And then here where we're doing the filtering, we can do column key. So if you look here, we have columns, they have a key left, key right. That's how we know which column it is. And for some reason, I don't know why that's grayed out, but I think it should be working. Yep, and there you have it. So now we have our left column, we have our right column, and you see this here, that's the old one that we had, so we're going to go ahead and remove that. Awesome. So now, same thing here. We can add new sections to our right column. Section number 2. We can add fields under it. Test, save it, and when we refresh, it'll automatically be shown here. And then, of course, we got to make sure we add our keys for our columns. Just do key equals column dot key. Easy enough. These are looking all uniform, but you can imagine we might have more fields in one than the other, and it's not going to be so symmetrical, but there we have it. Cool. So now we have a dynamic form rendering based on our collection builder design, so to speak. The structure of our collection builder is determining the fields that show up on our collection. Cool. So that part's good. I think this is a good point to commit. Let's do a simple search here. Look at our changes. Sweet. Setup, CRUD, create form. Push those out. Cool. So now that we have the form set up, I think the next step is going to be next step will be, I just noticed it's kind of redundant here that we have title with the name of the field 2 times, because I think in the mockup what we have here is we have like a label here for the field, then we have the field itself, but it looks like our text field accepts a label parameter, so we don't actually have to provide one here. And so let's just check that out. Just do this quick fix while we're at it. All right, yeah, that looks much cleaner. And that's great too, because it's not just the placeholder, this is actually the label of the field. You know what, I'm actually kind of curious. If we did provide a placeholder, like what would that look like? Okay, so we have the label name, and then once you click on it, you have the placeholder. Okay, fair enough. I was just curious. All right, cool. This is good enough to commit. Remove field name. Cool. So yeah, I think next up would be, what we want to do is I'm just getting this weird JavaScript error because when you do npm run hot, it does just hot model replacement. It doesn't actually like compile those to the two files, and so when you stop it, it kind of has the old JavaScript and it doesn't have everything it needs. So I had to recompile that. Anyways, what we want is we need to be able to keep track of this form data. So, you know, as the user enters data, we need some kind of like state object in the React component that will keep track of this data. And then it's going to submit it over to our backend. We're going to process it, save the item. So that's what we'll do next time. But that's it for now. And I'll be back later with some more fun stuff.